Hello and welcome to MTG Reads. I'm DP, author, MTG fan and voracious reader, here to guide you to some of the very best of the written word. Now, it's been a relatively quiet week with 145 articles have come out, and because inspiration often comes from Wizards of the Coast announcements, product announcements or new releases, and recently they had put out announcements for the coming year, inspiration is certainly widespread. This means that we've had lots of different articles this week. But Jay Annelli over at Coolstufterink instantly bucked the trend. He's not taken his inspiration from what Wizards is saying is coming in the future. Instead, he's found his inspiration from the past. Not quite into the days when everything was in black and white, but certainly from a bygone era where families gathered around the table and played board games. And what Jay has done is taken a look at the various board games that Wizards has either brought out or has commissioned about Magic the Gathering. They, on the whole, have been misses as much as hits, and Jay looks at each one, reviews them, looks at the strengths and weaknesses, and gives recommendations on what to buy and what to avoid. Certainly, he gives a little nod to the future, talking about Jumpstart, which, if you're here in the UK, still hasn't had a release date. And there's hope that maybe Wizards, with its new expanded marketing department, will come up with new and better ideas for board games. Whereas Kendra Smith, also of Coolstufterink, takes a look at the past with the eye to the future. And she's looking at the fact that we've had Amonkhet Remastered on Arena, and that now we've had the announcement of Time Spiral Remastered coming out in paper next year. She wants to know what else should be remastered, and goes through some of her favourite ideas and why they should be taken forward. For example, for drafting, she is focused on the early sets from the Alara block, as well as cards from the Onslaught block, as ideal targets for being remastered. From a nostalgia perspective, she looks at Innistrad, although it's very hard to remaster something that actually was so good in the first place. And as a set that desperately needs renovation, she proposes the Kamigawa block gets the remastered treatment. This would enable it to come out and be judged on its own terms, rather than the fact that it was weak by comparison to the previous blocks that had come out within that period. But a favourite option would be to do a remastering of the original Ravnica set. She points out that it's a clear fan favourite, which is why we visited it so often, and puts forward links to a number of her articles where she has said what could and couldn't be done in that space. And in fact, she is asking the question, just what could Wizards do with this new remastered design space? Certainly from my perspective, I would love to see Wizards bring history back and bring the story, old story, to new players. This means that we could take a look at the Ice Age block, or condense the Weatherlight saga down and remaster those iconic points of Magic history. Couple it with the new storytelling and you're bringing the legacy of Magic to new players. But whereas Kendra is taking her inspiration for the future from history, Jacob Torbeck over at Hipsters of the Coast is taking his inspiration from today. He draws parallels between the real world's ability to heal itself as we have reduced human interaction during the pandemic, or more accurately, the world's inability to heal itself. And he compares that with Zendikar's Royale, which is Zendikar's way of healing itself. Now, Jacob looks at it through very philosophical motivations. He's looking at the motivations of the societies around the world today, as well as the philosophical motivations of the characters, particularly Nahiri and Nissa, within the latest Magic story. And it's very much a debate about nature versus man, a sort of a Bacon versus Paracelsus argument, which he details in his article. It's clear that what we want is a better world, but it's equally clear that what we want are different views of what a better world is. And it's a very interesting article from that respect. Would a healing world look like it's a healing world to everyone? or would it look to some like it's attacking us? And it's a very good philosophical question, which he answers in detail in his article. So we've had people take their inspiration of the future from our past and our present, and it's no surprise to find that Josh Nelson over at TCG Player is one of those who takes his inspiration for the future from the future. He is looking forward to the new world of Kaldheim that's been announced as the set release early in 2021. What Josh does is he speculates over how synergies work between different releases that are within the standard set. And so there should be clues within Core 21 and within Zendikar of what sort of things will come up that these can synergize with. Josh notes that there's likely to be some land synergies with not just the landfall that we've had, but the potential re-emergence of snowlands, because it is likely that Kaldheim's going to be a cold environment. But he also draws from that to note that there are an increasing number of cards that come in tapped and stay tapped, and that it's a classic cold snap type of tactic to have cards which keep things tapped. So he thinks that tapping and keeping things tapped could well be a resurgence in Kaldheim. It's a relatively short article and well worth the read. It's designed specifically to spark a debate. But credit has to go to people who not only want and view a potential future, but are willing to do something about it. And that is precisely what Kaya Vess at Edh Wreck has done. Not content with the various games and formats and plays that Magic has got, she's decided to do something new. She's decided to make deck building a competitive event, and has invented, and run the very first, Brewing Royale. Now, in this first event that's detailed in her article, she ran a theme for decks to be built on the Storm Scale 10 type of mechanics. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Storm Scale is something that was made up by Mark Rosewater, where items on the Storm Scale that are low numbered, such as flying, which is Storm Scale 1, are going to turn up often, whereas items that are Storm Scale 10, like Storm, will never turn up again. So in this first challenge, the challenge was to make decks that were scoring 10 on the Storm Scale. There were also other bonus points that were available for the deck builds, and there were 3 contestants and 3 judges. Now, I'm not going to say what deck won or how, because I'll leave that for you to read, but what I can tell you is everyone, frankly, is a winner out of this. It's a new way of setting deck building challenges in a fun and interesting way and rewarding that deck building. You can take the challenge yourself, build decks to it, and the only thing that I think is a shame is that she didn't have the funding to make this into the anime TV series that she really wanted it to be. But here's fingers crossed for the future. And in other news, a quick reminder that the visual history book on Legends is due out next month. I'll review it as soon as I get my hands on a copy. Meanwhile, we have now got the cover art for the visual history book Planes of the Multiverse, which is due out in 2021. That's about it for this week. So if you like getting updates on some of the very best of the Magic the Gathering articles, then please consider hitting the like button and also consider subscribing. If you hit the little notification button, it should update you each time. Meanwhile, all of the links to the articles are in the text description below. And until we come back together again, happy reading and take care.